Here on Over 50's Wisdom, of course, we talk to people over 50 and get some wisdom. Now, we know that life changes. The older we get, more changes come into our lives, and it's how we deal with these changes, which is vitally important. And so, Ray here, my guest today from beautiful Northern Ireland, I hope will offer some advice and guidance. Ray, good morning. Whereabouts in Northern Ireland are you?
I live in Bangor. It's a coastal, just become a city near Belfast. I have the good fortune to be the local councillor for the centre of the city, and so I know the area very well.
It's a lovely part of the world. I have worked there, I filmed there on BBC Antiques Road Trip, and you have some fantastic driving roads. There's some top tips on Over 50's Wisdom. If you fancy a really good driving trip, go to Bangor in Northern Ireland. Follow that coast road. It's a great road.
Great.
So, how old are you now, Ray?
I'm 58.
58.
Yeah.
And tell me about the story that you want to share with us.
Well, gosh, you introduced it by wisdom. I might just simply call it perspective. I look back to turning 50, and it was quite a pivotal moment for me. My mum, who I was very close to, had died just a few weeks beforehand. My first of my four children was getting married the next day. So it was one of those pivotal moments in terms of life events. But the further I get past 50, I realized that something else sort of happened at 50. What I would say happened was that I permitted myself. I permitted myself to be me. I permitted myself to be older and have some perspective. And I think in a probably less constructive way, other people may have permitted me by writing me off as a little bit older and therefore just let them on with it. So all round, as I look back, turning 50 was quite pivotal.
So you're saying that turning 50 was a good thing because a lot of people struggle with that milestone.
No. Best decade, David. Absolutely the best decade. Something happened that I lost the ability to walk a year and a half ago, following some surgery that meant that all of the nerves below the site of the surgery no longer worked.
Well, elaborate a little on that.
Gosh, well, literally happened out of nowhere. I mentioned that I was a councillor in our local area, and we've got lots and lots of regeneration happening, lots of really interesting projects. But because they're all happening side by side, people were getting a little confused as what belonged with what. So I decided I loved walking. Let's have a walk along this 2-mile stretch, and I'll explain what might go here and there. And so we had a lovely morning. And at the end, I was just standing chatting to someone. And then I noticed, having had a lot of back pain, instead of back pain, it was like a pushing down in my head into my spine. Tried to walk, I couldn't walk. I ended up in hospital for 13 weeks. And the long story short was the pressure down was actually the spine shifting into the gap that had been made and broke the nerves.
Wow. And so this was literally out of the blue. You were fit and healthy before then?
Got up that morning, a little back pain from now and again, from time to time. And literally, I could feel this pressure, started to walk. I felt like I'd had a few gins, David, but clearly I hadn't in the morning, being the very respectable man I am, and found that I just couldn't throw my legs forward to walk. I managed a couple of steps and sat on the bonnet of my car, rang my husband and said, I think you might need to come and get me because I actually can't move. And that's kind of how
that literally is life-changing. How do you deal with that life change? I mean, are you able to walk relatively normally, or do you need aid?
I spend most of my life in a wheelchair. I can do short transfers between wheelchair and bed and chair with crutches, and that's kind of it. So, all of the things are like, well, I get back to swimming in a version of swimming, but running, riding, hill walking, activity, all gone.
But you're handling it incredibly well, Ray. And you're saying that 50's decade was the best in your life, and now you've lost the ability to walk. So this is a great mental strength. Where did that come from?
Well, I suppose my job helps a little. Besides being in politics, I've been a psychotherapist for over 30 years. Wow. And I've always held the perspective, David, that life doesn't happen around you. Life happens in here with what you make of what happens around you. So I remembered the day that I was in hospital, and it was maybe this and it was maybe that, and eventually I could sense there was a clarity with them. And the nurse said, "Well, you'll see the consultant tomorrow, and he'll answer all your questions." So the consultant came to the ward, and he left. And I said, "Am I not getting this conversation?" And she went, "Oh yes, dear." She said, "We're taking you down to his office for a private little chat." And I thought, I don't think I like the sound of that very much. So I got wheeled down, was taken in, and the nurse came in and said, "I think we'll make tea." And I thought, "No, don't make tea. I don't like the sound of where this is heading. So he came in, lovely, lovely chap, and he began to explain. And as he began to explain, I wouldn't walk. It was a strange thing, David, where I was there and I could hear him, but it was like he was slightly further away, and my head was trying to process it. And I remember distinctly thinking, I need to find a way to make sense of this. I need to find a way to hold on to this. And it was sort of like flicking through pages in your head, trying to find something. And I remember in an instant landing on the word grateful. And I thought, that's it. I think this is how I can hold on to this. So immediately I burst into the conversation telling him how grateful I was for him and how grateful I was for the NHS. And when the porter was pushing me back to the ward, I was grateful for him, and I was grateful for the nurse when I arrived back. Not in denial, because it was very real and I did cry and I was upset, but I needed something that I could use to bring it into my life. And that's kind of been the tool in the last 18 months, David. Finding when, for example, we just bought the most fabulous 3-story Victorian house right next to a Victorian park, and with all these great plans. And since then, I've been unable even to go upstairs. So, it's finding ways to be grateful in a situation like that, where we're planning to move house, and we're looking at a really nice bungalow with beautiful gardens. And so it's not denial and it's not pretending, but it's trying to find a way to make sense.
And Ray, has this experience given you a fresh outlook on life? How do you live more in the moment now? Do you
Oh,
appreciate the smaller things?
absolutely. I appreciate now how I may have taken for granted just getting up in the morning and jumping into the shower, or putting on my own socks, or being able to lie on the floor and crawl around to play a game with my grandchildren. Um, and I'm not resentful that I didn't pay enough attention to it, but I am grateful when there are things that I can focus on. As I can do this, I can do it this way, I can adapt how I do it. And I suppose what I'm paying attention to more recently is my resilience. My husband would call it stubbornness, but I'll call it resilience, and how that you can adapt and how you can change what you do.
And what advice would you offer to people over
Mm.
50,
Mm.
struggling with this decade, the decade that you've enjoyed the most? But
Yes.
I think that word grateful is a brilliant word. How do
Mm.
we all clasp on to that word, grateful? How do we learn to appreciate the things in life
Yeah,
right now?
yeah. I hear a lot of the word mindfulness used, David, and it's been used so much that it's almost become a little word that we don't really understand. But if I could change the word mindfulness to deliberately paying attention, I would leave that as the kind of the insight of being in my 50s. Um, there's a lovely guy called Eckhart Tolle wrote a book about being now. I suppose it's about paying attention to right now. And it is so much of our life. And you notice this, I said recently, I wonder, is being late 50s really just about saying, oh my word, time passes quickly? Because we tend to say that quite a lot. But really, it's paying attention to the moment. It's easy to go for a walk with your grandchildren on a lovely frosty morning, but actually paying attention to leaving the car in later for an MOT, or what you've got to do for a meeting in the evening. And I think it's just deliberately, it's like going to the gym. I suppose you've got to train yourself, but keep coming back to the moment that you're in and the experience that you're having. And I suppose if I might, the second thing I would say is, when something difficult like this comes along, don't rush to the next stage. How can I fix it? How can I heal it? How can I change it? but actually stop still with it. Try to make a bit of a friend with it and ask, what have I got to learn from this? What can I see about me and others in the world from this moment without running on to the next bit, wanting to get rid of the difficulty?
Bring us right up to date where you are right now with this disability, and
Yeah.
then zoom back 10 years to the age of 48 to you
Yeah.
58. Were you
Yeah.
happier at 48, or with everything that's gone on, are you happier at 58?
Oh, without the shadow of a doubt, happier at 58.
Yeah.
Um, at 48, I was in a relationship. I was living down in the south of England. I had three men's shops selling men's vintage clothes. I was in a relationship that I worked very hard at every single day, determined to make it work. Today, I wouldn't be in that relationship because I wouldn't accept having to work that hard with somebody else, because I've really gotten to come home to myself, and he deserves a lot better than he put up with at 48. So 50s have been utterly fabulous.
Well, you know what? That is a wonderful line to end on. Ray, you truly an inspiration.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for sharing your experience. A real delight to meet you.
Thank you, and you,
Brilliant.
David.
Bye.